Welcome to Link. Some people call my guest Dread Nappy, some people call him Nappy, some people call him Dread. I usually introduce him as our visual historian, a title that the late great Jim Sepyo bestowed upon him. Welcome, Bob Daniels, to Link.
Thank you, La-Verne. Thank you very much.
How would you introduce yourself?
I just introduced myself as a healthy young black man trying to do what I do. I'm Bob to some, I'm Bobby to my family, and I'm Nappy to other artists who are close to me. Well,
Mr. Bob Daniels, I am looking right now. You can't see what I'm seeing, but you've created all of this work, so you know what I'm looking at, and I am just overwhelmed by what I'm seeing. Most of this work that I'm looking at right now was done since you've been in Italy, am I right?
Most of it. There was a few doodles, and what I did with this collection of work that the audience can see and that you can see on the monitor is to incorporate something old, something new. So people can kind of get a different perspective of how I work. And ever since the show in Brooklyn, I've basically been working in black and white. So there are a few pieces in color, which you'll see on the catalog, which we'll discuss at another time. But most of the work has been in black and white.
And what is it, paint? Is it charcoal?
I'm a mixed medium master. I use anything I can get my hands on.
Tell us about it.
Most of the new work is pen and ink. Mm-hmm. And one of the great things I can say about Italy is Europe period, the art supplies over there are totally different. They're a different quality than the materials I find in America. And
better?
Better, yes.
Mm-hmm.
Light years better. And then there's a company in Germany that I've been buying a lot of equipment from. And they actually have an acrylic paint that's in a pen form. So it's easier to control. Mm-hmm. And I can go back to what I really enjoyed when I was younger, which is pen and ink and black and white work. And I can work with in great detail because it's easier to control the medium.
Mm-hmm. Is it the paints, the quality is higher? How about the prices?
The prices, there's a little bit pricey, mm-hmm. but the paint quality is archival. Mm-hmm. The life on a piece is 75 to 100 years. And if you put a fixative on the piece after you're finished, that gives it another 100 years. So the quality of the materials are incredible. And I've spoken to a lot of, actually I did a live paint with some Frenchmen. And they were giving me the information about the paints. And so I use the same materials that they use.
This is an experience for me, Bob, seeing everything like this, right after, one piece right after another. I know you've been sending us a lot of images from Italy since you've been over there, so I've been looking at your work, and as you have your various shows, I've been kind of looking at your catalogs, but to see it, I know this is not everything, but to see so much of it like this, it's quite an experience. Tell me, Bob, did you explode over there?
I love Italy. I ran in Italy in '71, and I always wanted to go back. And then I had some issues in this country as a black man, and I said, you know what, it's time for me to find something that is going to move me to the next level. And I started a relationship with an Italian lady. Started viral, and then became more personal, telephone, and accumulated with me going over to Italy. And the environment for me to work in is incredible. I actually took the garage and turned it into a studio. I have not had a real studio since I left Mount Vernon. I owned a home up in Mount Vernon, and I had the whole first floor as a studio. So when I moved to Riverside Drive in Harlem, I didn't really have the space that I needed to paint, even though I took my bedroom and basically I built a loft bed, and I used all the other space as my studio. So now the apartment that we have in Italy, I paint both upstairs and I paint downstairs. I took the second bedroom, turned it into a studio. I took the garage, turned it into a studio. And so I just work. That's my proficiency, is I just work. You know me, La-Verne.
The fact that you're not around some of the things we're around, like all these tweets and all these newscasts and all the hysteria, since we have this whole new setup in Washington, and it's so many things that going on in the country. I mean, I know you're not immune to the news, and people, you know, it's worldwide, but has that affected your work too, the fact that you're not physically here with us?
Actually, I can block out a lot of what's going on in the news, but several things that you just mentioned, let me talk about one first. I am doing a series on Trump because this man has to go. This man doesn't belong in Washington. He's not a people's person. And I'm going to leave that at that, because I could go off and I can elaborate. But he's only in office as a self-serving gesture. He's not in office for the people. So I've started a series. 2 pieces have already been done. When I get to the 10th piece, then I'm going to show it to the public. So that's coming soon.
I'm sorry, you did a piece with eyes. What was that piece? Do you know which piece I'm talking about? It had all these eyes on it. I wanted to do a show with you just about that piece, because I think it said something about after the election or before. It was, I don't remember the title of it, but it had all these eyes on it. Eyes are watching us.
Yeah, the eyes are watching.
Oh,
that was kind of a prediction.
That was, don't tell me it was before the election.
Before the election.
Wow.
Okay.
Wow.
I knew that Hillary wasn't going to win. And I was very sad about that. But one thing is, she was kind of self-serving. 2, she had that whole email mess that she never cleaned up. And 3, American women did not respond to her the way I thought they would have. So that was very disappointing, especially Middle America. And to me, the surprise was that Middle America voted for Donald Trump, and most of Middle America are immigrants. So I could not understand that. But being in Italy, I'm away from all of that, and I can just focus. I can just stay directed on my task and do what God intended for me to do, which is to report history.
Report history. So now, this title that Jim Sepyo gave you about visual historian, I always understood what he was talking about when he said that. Or I think I did. You'd never really understand Jim, you know.
Yeah.
But now more so than ever, when I see this recent work of yours, Bob, I mean, that title just fits you so perfectly. I feel like you're just recording so much for us, and you're reporting, but you're not just a disinterested observer. You're making your points.
Oh no, I have 3 grandchildren, and when I look at these children, when they interact with their friends, when they interact with each other, when they interact with their parents, when they interact with me, it takes me back to a time when I was young. So now is the time to build a legacy for my family. James Sepyo was very instrumental in me collecting myself, not only as a black man, but in terms of being truthful to myself, who I was, stand up for myself, say what you have to say, do what you have to do, be who you need to be. And so that's one of the things that having joined the WUC and being a WUC member, to know who I am as a black man, to relate to my blackness, and to stand up for my blackness. Don't be afraid. Doesn't matter. You know, you maybe get punched in the face, you may get slapped in the mouth, but there's no greater pride than knowing that you're black and that you're standing up for being black. The way the world is now, it's very difficult because we keep buying into whiteness and they keep surgically improving themselves in terms of being black. So it's kind of just a twisted value going on here in this country in terms of black people. The great thing about being in Italy is I'm black. I know I'm black. When I look at Africans, they know that I'm an American black, that I'm not an African black, which is a whole nother story. Interesting, because the Africans don't even speak to me in Europe.
They don't speak to you?
No.
All right, before I get into that, because I know that's going to take me way off, because I go off almost.
No, and we know each other, yes.
Bob, when you bring up the WUC artists, you are taking us back. I mean, of course, they're still alive and well, but you're bringing us back to an era when artists said we are not separate from the people, and we're not disconnected. We have a responsibility. Could you talk a little bit about that WUC concept, and what was that all about? And what is it still all about?
Well, you know, the beginnings of WUC were basically formed at a time when this country is going through racial turmoil. And these brothers decided to say, you know, we've had enough. We're black men. We want people to know that we're black men. We paint images of black people. We're not prejudiced. It has nothing to do with racism. It has nothing to do with discrimination. It just has to do with pride. You know, Jewish people have their schools. Their children are self-taught. Nobody says anything. Nobody says anything. They go to their schools. They do what they do. They're Jewish. It's understood. Okay? When black people talk about self-education and self-empowerment, oh, something's wrong with you. Why? Why is the psychology so much different for us than it is for anybody else? Okay, so the brotherhood, the WUC brotherhood, reestablished in the black community a self-pride. When James Brown would say it loud, I'm black and I'm proud, WUC was, and we're saying it with you. Okay, so one of the values I would like to see reinstituted is the WUC Fine Arts Show outside. That hasn't been done for years. We need to go back to that. We need to go back over to Mount Morris Park, and in the springtime, that art needs to be out there. People need to see it. Okay.
Well, I mean, you know, the era that we're talking about, the art was everywhere.
Yeah.
You know, in front of a vacant lot, in front of somebody's house, in front of a school, if possible, in front of a playground. It wasn't.
Well, now you have gentrification in Harlem. They don't even they don't even want you playing the drums in Mount Morris Park after 5 o'clock.
Hello.
You know, it's like they came uptown and it's their rule, which I'm on TV. It almost came out.
Well, you know, I mean, it almost came out. It has to come out.
Yeah.
We have to start to talk, and we have to start to admit, and we have to start to.
Harlem no longer belongs to us anymore, and so that is a sadness that I had to take away with me, and it, you know, it moves you to tears even when I think about the fact that. And I don't have anything against Caucasians or whatever name you want to give people, but you can't come into a community and say, okay, now that we're in the community, we have the right to change.
Well,
what's been going on for years.
It has happened all over the country.
Has happened.
It has happened all over the country.
Yeah.
And we see that the services have been changed. All the services have changed since this gentrification era. But I don't want to eat up the last bit of our time with that, Bob. I am curious about the show you just concluded for Women's History Month. I'm also I also want my audience to know how they can continue to see your work. If they aren't your friend on Facebook, how can they continue to see your work? When are you going to come back in person again? When are you going to give us some workshops? When are you going to pull our coats to how the young folks can get into these arts? When are you going to give us some lectures? We want something. We want you. We want some pieces of you. I'm so happy you're in Italy, but I know my audience wants you here giving us some direction about how these young folks can start creating again and feel confident. And that thing that Jim Sepyo gave you, we want you to give some of that to our young folks.
Well, I would love to do some workshops. People can contact me at danielsrobert154 at yahoo.com.
Spell it, please.
DANIELS ROBERT 154 at yahoo.com. If they would like for me to do workshops, I am a certified New York State teacher. I do have a teaching license. And I'm on fineartamerica.com. You can go on the internet. I'm getting ready to put up a website when I get back to Italy. Adam and I are going to develop a website, an Appiate Art website, that will be more inclusive and people can come in. They can always contact you, and you know how to get in touch with me. The next big art show will be in Italy, June 10th. It's going to be 60 pieces, one-man show. The show will travel from Erba to Milano to Venice to Torino. And then we'll see where it goes from there.
I wish somebody who was watching the show right now, who had some money, some serious money, could arrange some trips for our young folks to go over to Italy to see your shows, Robert.
Well, one of the things I'm trying to do is to start to raise money, and that's something maybe I'll come back on the next show and talk about. But I would like to start a liaison, an art liaison between Italy and the United States. So one of the things I'm doing now is talking to gallery owners. I'm trying to set up a here and there type of art show where I can bring Italian artists over to America and have a traveling show, and then bring American artists over to Italy and do a traveling show. So that's something that's coming in the near future.
Ooh, fabulous, fabulous, fabulous. Yeah. Now, give us the details of your show that's opening.
Oh, it's opening June 10th in Urba, which is a Saturday afternoon, and it'll be 60 pieces. Most of the pieces will be in black and white. Black and white is the new thing. I went back to something I was very successful with in junior high school, which is pen and ink drawing.
I used to love it. Pen and ink.
So when people saw my etchings, they said, "Oh, how come you don't paint like this?" So I decided in 2008, the black and white piece I did in the show in Brooklyn, the healing show. I did a 5-foot by 10-foot piece. I am now doing a piece with David Lackey, which he's recording as I paint. So I'll give you a snippet of that also. And then there are 17 more pieces that go with that piece. So I'm hoping within the next 2 years to have these 20 pieces of work that will be ready for a museum. So I'm doing museum-size work now in pen and ink.
Bob, no, forget my questions. I have a few more questions, but is there anything you'd like to tell us that I haven't asked you about? You don't have to think too hard. I can go over my questions now.
yeah, because I think I covered basically everything. The only other thing is I'm loving Italy. If you're on my Facebook page, you see all the photography.
Awesome. And that's another thing. You need to have a show with just your photography, because your photography is ridiculous.
Yeah, we're working on that. We're working on that. Yeah, no. In the near future, I would like to come back and maybe explain some of the things that we didn't have time to talk about today.
There's a wonderful young man named Michael Hooper who has a program that's at least 30 years old called Roots Revisited, and he takes children, African American students from Bedford-Stuyvesant primarily, to black colleges, and to Africa. And these children have grown so much with this travel. When you were talking about how you just work now, you can just work. I understand. I went to Paris a few years ago just to write. I got a friend's apartment, and I went over there just to write. And I wrote like 5 or 6 plays. Just, you know.
Oh, yeah.
And it was something about it. I mean, I could understand all of these artists that kind of like escape. But anyway, I just threw that in for
You know, back in the day, they said peaceful places and things. That's how you get rid of your demons. You got to get rid of the things around you that don't work for you. Italy works for me. I'm away from stuff. I'm away from people who try to pull me into what they're doing. I'm in a different arena where I can actually see what other people are doing, how other people are doing it. A different economic system, a different social system, and it impacts on me in terms of who I am, and it makes my reality a lot different. It changes my perception on reality, because in this country they censor a lot of the news, but as you get out and you travel around the world, that news that they don't report here is reported in Europe, so you get to see it. I was actually detained in France and locked up. I never had that experience before.
You got 10 seconds to tell us about it.
Well, they said I stayed in the zone too long, and they deported me. Without even contacting Italy, they took it upon themselves to say, you have to go back.
To America?
America, yeah. They
And
turned
they
me
sent you
around
back
and put
here?
me on the next plane. That happened a year ago. And so I stay away from France. I don't like them people. They don't like me, and that's fine.
Wow. Now see, that means I have to do a part 2 of the show.
Yeah.
But for now, I'm going to have to cut the show short. I'm going to cut it short about a minute so that I can run your images up one more time, and people will be able to see it without our bodies interrupting the view. Bob, I thank you so much for joining us on Link. Thank you so much. And thank you for your work.
You're welcome. And if people have any questions, please contact Link and La-Verne Gittens, and she will give you whatever information you need.
Thank you, Bob.
You're wonderful.
And good night, everybody.
Ciao, ciao. Arrivederci.
Thank you so much for joining us on Link.